Hello everypony, and welcome to the first of my top 10 videos where I go over the best books I've read from any particular genre or theme within the fandom's rather extensive list of material. For today, I'll be going over the top 10 Changeling stories I have read to date, wherein our favorite love-sucking shapeshifters star either as members of the main cast or feature prominently within the storyline. Keep in mind that this is my list of what I believe to be the best books, so if your absolute favorite story isn't on here, please don't barbecue me in the comments section because I haven't read your favorite book. Anyway, now that we got that out of the way, let's get this list started. Number 10. The first book on this list is a little number that I didn't give much of a chance upon first viewing. It took me several tries to get past the first few chapters, but as soon as the plot took off, I was hooked. Fragments, written by Phoenix Dragon, is a shorter story at just under 68,000 words and only 10 chapters to its name. Yet don't let the small size fool you, this story has many things within that are sure to take readers by surprise. It is also rated E for every pony, so you don't need to worry too much about heavier material. As an example as to why you shouldn't dismiss this story out of hoof, the author does something that I have rarely seen done well, and that is to have a nearly complete amnesiac main character. Sky, as he chooses to be called, is a Pegasus stallion that can't remember anything about his past, except for frequent nightmares about Canterlot being under siege by black insectoid creatures. I think we can all figure out who those happen to be. He goes on a journey of self-discovery, trying to remember who he was and what he was doing prior to waking up in the Everfree Forest. Throughout the book, the main themes are centered around the idea that it is not our past that defines us, but who we are in the present. So when Sky finally remembers who he really is, he is left with a choice: follow the will of his past or to embrace the present and future he has built for himself. In a way, it reminds me of Past Sins in a slightly boiled down way, so I would go and give it a read if any of you want a shorter but entertaining story to take up some spare time. It certainly was a worthwhile read for me, and I hope it will be for you as well. Number 9. The next book on our list is something that I was pleasantly surprised by on several occasions. It goes deeper into the structure of changeling culture and gives a rather convincing narrative on how young changelings get trained in the arts of deception and impersonation. The plotline of Without a Hive, also written by Phoenix Dragon, begins long before the main six ever met, reaching several years into the past as a young drone by the name of Nyctis trains with other nymphs under the watchful eyes of one of Chrysalis's royal daughters. At a whopping 180,000 words and adding up to 23 chapters, this book is far longer than the previous entry, but still maintains the air of wonder and adventure as we follow Nyctis through his life. When tragedy befalls the small group of nymphs while learning to impersonate ponies, Nyctis is thrown into an unforgiving world where he is all on his own and must do anything to survive until he can return to the hive. There is a definite need for this book's T rating, as the desperate struggle to survive can be a rather daunting one, especially when you must face it all by yourself. Yet our intrepid nymph never gives up, and the will to survive is strong throughout the entire book, even if it falters every now and again. Take a look inside this little number if you are in for a long and far-reaching adventure, where every step must be taken with care and every choice could risk not only yourself, but everything you care about. Number 8. The 8th book on this top 10 is the shortest of the lot, although don't let its size fool you into thinking it doesn't have any worth. Then again, I think we are all aware of the fact that judging a book by its cover, or word count as the case may be, is something that only fools fall prey to. I fell in love with this author's characters, and I have enjoyed rereading this book multiple times over in recent years. A novel tale written by the talented Blissey1 is the story of a changeling author who lives in Canterlot. He has written multiple books and even has an avid fan in our resident Purple Book Horse. Yet something goes wrong, as things are wont to do in this world, and another changeling hive, led by the infamous Chrysalis, invades the capital and reveals his race's existence to the world. Left with no choice, our hero is forced to leave the city and search for another place to call home, all while avoiding the ponies he used to entertain. Totaling at 53,500 words and sporting 14 chapters, a novel tale is something most readers could knock out in a few days, if that, although you would be hard-pressed to find a more complete and creative plot for such a compact package. It was the first book I encountered that suggested that other hives would focus on emotions other than love for food, and I still hold that as part of my personal headcanon for the expanded My Little Pony universe. The T rating is probably not needed, but then again, I'm not the author, so what do I know? Anyways, this was a rich and engaging book that I continue to enjoy time and time again, so if you feel up for some literary fencing, check out this story and see what you can discover inside the cover. NumberSeven. This time around, we've got a story that follows one of the most infamous of the changeling race, that of our wayward queen, Chrysalis. Although you won't be seeing much action or wanton destruction in this story. No, this book has more subplots and backward schemes than a drug dealer's checkbook, and that's only what we can see for ourselves as we go through the chapters. Winds of Change, written by the dramatically named Clan Crusher, is a book that breaks many of the usual tropes concerning the changeling race. One of the biggest being that it is not a small drone that comes to speak with the ponies after the invasion, but the Queen herself. Coming to a total of just under 68,000 words and 12 chapters, it is another shorter book, although the existence of a sequel makes up for the smaller read time. At first one might think that Chrysalis had come to fight, but in actuality she has come to talk peace. And who, you may ask, is tasked with keeping an eye on the devious leader of the changelings? Why, Twilight Sparkle, of course. What could possibly go wrong with that arrangement? Trust is tried and bonds are formed from the most unlikely of places, and everything concerning the fragile peace hinges on how well Twilight can get along with one of her most sworn enemies. Take a look inside if you want to see how this messy diplomatic trial ends, and you might be surprised by the results of said adventure. NumberSix. Remember how I said the last book broke several of the classic tropes that define the changeling genre? Well, this book uses one of the most common of them all, but in a unique twist that I honestly haven't seen before or since after reading this book. Of the Hive, written by the very talented, law-abiding Pony, is the first of 6 books that follow Twilight Sparkle as she adjusts to her new life as a changeling princess. Rounded out at 77,500 words and comprised of 11 chapters, this book is a good start to what will become a very long and inspirational series. Yet things are not all smooth and easy even here in the beginning, because some of the most amazing things in our lives must come about because of tragedy. Transformed after an attack on a diplomatic mission nearly takes her life, Twilight must learn to balance her new life as a changeling with that of her old life as a pony. Battles are fought on both the land and in the mind as Twilight and company struggle to balance her new existence with that of her past. Queens strike dark bargains in the shadows, and ponies fight amongst each other on how to deal with this new development. And it all came about from the little question that started so many amazing books. What if this pony was actually a changeling? This was the first true book series that I fell in love with after joining FimFiction, and I still read them again and again as I rediscover what made me enjoy fan-created works in the first place. Take a look at this series if you want a true world built around our favorite shapeshifters, and see what Law Abiding has in store for you. NumberFive. As we enter the second half of our list, we come across a story that I honestly had some trouble finishing. Not because of the content, but mostly because of how long it was after reading so many shorter books. I would always get sidetracked after going through some of the admittedly short chapters, but there were always more to read, so it took me a while to get through it. However, I can honestly say that Change, written by Tom117Z, is a battle worth the struggle and would be one of the jewels in your crown if you added it to your libraries. Falling just shy of 150,000 words and sporting a grand total of 64 chapters, this book is a bit of a road trip for those of you that are used to smaller books, but with the numerous chapters it makes it at least a little bit easier to stop if you can pause between sections every couple thousand words. This book's T rating is well and truly deserved in the essence that this story deals with a lot of interpersonal angst, particularly of the family variety. Just like with the last book, this book deals with the question of what if said pony was a changeling, but takes it a step further. Rather than Twilight being turned into one, in this book she was born as a changeling, but had to be sent away from the hive when love became hard to come by for her own survival. Now the wedding has a new meaning in that it is not purely for the takeover of Equestria, but in order to gather enough love to keep Twilight alive in the most crucial stage of her development. Without the love of ponies in unseemly high concentrations, Twilight Sparkle, the daughter of Queen Chrysalis, will die before the reception can even begin. Trials of family and friends battle for supremacy inside the pages of this book, all while darker forces work from behind the scenes to bring Twilight's family to ruin. Take a look inside this story if you are in for a long and worthwhile read, and see what kind of challenges await our intrepid princess as she tries to keep those she loves out of harm's way. Number 4. If you've watched my first book review, then you are probably fairly familiar with this next story, if only because you would understand more of the plot and characters than what we will cover in this top 10. It is arguably one of the best books I have read to date, even outside the Changeling theme, but is placed as number 4 on this list because the following stories have just that little something more that edges this one out. Even so, Princess Celestia, the Changeling Queen, is a book that captured my interest from the moment I first saw the cover, as many of you can probably tell. The author, going by the name Vren55, created an amazing world that snagged my imagination and dragged me into the realm of fiction faster than I could blink. And with Princess Celestia, or at least the one we know and love, revealed to actually be a Changeling Queen in disguise, well, we can only shoot for the moon with that kind of setup. Adding up to roughly 168,000 words and reaching 31 on the chapter count. This book is more than enough to satisfy most readers when it comes to keeping them occupied for an extended term. The E rating might be a bit generous given the heavier subject matter that this book goes over, especially when the latter chapters reveal the true villains of the story. Yet even after dragging your heart and soul through the mud to reach the ending, it is a resolution well-deserved and a heartwarming conclusion to an emotional roller coaster that had me guessing from start to finish. Number 3. As I said in the last entry, these last few books are now being ranked less on the overall quality of the writing and more on specific reasons that only really affect me on a personal level. Not to say they are not amazing books in their own rights, it's just that there are more specific reasons that I rank these stories as high as I do. Starting our top 3 is The Queen of Hearts, written by Pumpernickel Rye. It is by far the biggest book on this list and had me occupied for almost a week by the time I got through the whole thing. But then again, with almost 345,000 words under its belt, broken up into only 23 chapters, it's no wonder it took so long for even a fast reader like myself to get through it. Yet even though it took so long to finish, I loved this book from beginning to end because of the plot and the humanizing, if you'll pardon the expression, of one of Equestria's most dangerous foes. The T rating is mostly spot on as far as I can tell. Not really much else to add other than to be prepared for some suggested bedroom action behind closed doors. Nothing else to warn about unless you're allergic to the feels, in which case may Faust have mercy on your soul, because there is a lot. Moving along, as one might guess from the cover art, Chrysalis and Pinkie Pie of all ponies star as the two main characters in this book, which threw me for a loop in its own right before we even got to the really good stuff later on. The story is from the infamous Queen's perspective, another first this book introduced me to, and follows her after her hive banishes her for failing the invasion. She comes up with a rather harebrained idea in order to get her throne back, but in the end it all works out, though maybe not exactly as Chrysalis had originally intended. Go check this one out if you like romance and matchmaking, and be sure to have your filios ready, because this one hits hard and hits often when it comes to emotional sucker punches. Ye have been warned. Other than that, this is an amazing book I would read 100 times over and never get tired of. So if you feel up for the challenge, go take a look and see for yourself just how badly Chrysalis messes up her second takeover. Number 2. Some of you may have been around my FimFiction page a time or two, and if so, you might have stumbled across something I call the Masterworks Library. This next story was the inspiration behind the creation of said library, and was the main reason I wanted to start doing top 10s and book reviews as the Masterworks began to grow. A different perspective, written by the amazing Goldfur and illustrated by the highly talented Fox and a Wolf, was the originator of the journey that led to my becoming a YouTube creator, along with being one of the best books I've ever read. Adding up to just over 210,000 words divided into 20 chapters. This story is another long haul for slow readers, but is well worth the challenge for the quality of writing and the detail put into the characters. The T rating is once again spot on, although the rather risque humor can be a bit much at times for those who are unprepared. Consider this your warning if you decide to read the book. The plot is centered around two OCs, an Earth pony named Long Path and a changeling-raised griffin named Free Agent. Both have been friends for years and decide to go on an adventure together when Path discovers his special talent is communicating with other races. Thus begins an epic tale of danger and love as our intrepid duo find enemies, friendship, and family as they walk the world stage side by side. Check this one out if you have the time. I highly recommend giving it a look if you enjoy world traveling and discovering the secrets of other races. Number 1. And the top spot on our list is the book that started it all. The story that was my inspiration for becoming not only a member of FimFiction and a My Little Pony author, but the first story I read from the fandom as a whole. This book was the single reason I started reading fanfiction, which eventually led me to writing them and now to making videos about them. This one story started the adventure that has brought me to this point, and that is why it holds the number 1 spot on this list. It doesn't hurt that it also is one of the most detailed and well-known stories within the fandom, on top of doing all of that personal stuff. The Irony of Applejack, written by Mr. Friendly, is a book that goes deep into the history of the changeling race, as well as following the age-old question, what if this pony was a changeling? Holding the middle ground when it comes to length at almost 176,000 words, this book's 19 chapters are a bit to get through, but nowhere near as drawn out as some of the others on this list. The T rating is once again perfectly matched with the themes and the plot of the book, allowing for rather dynamic fight scenes and some heartbreaking revelations that shook me to my core. I don't dare spoil any of the book for those of you that wish to read it, but know this, my little ponies. Ye who enter here shall emerge to changed being, either in the heart, the mind, or the spirit. Tread carefully, for here there be monsters. And with that out of the way, I can officially say that this top 10 has come to an end. Thank you all so much for watching, and keep an eye out for new content as I go over more of my favorite works from across the fandom. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment in the towel section below. I always look forward to hearing from my viewers and wish to know what you all thought of my first top 10. In any case, I hope to see you all next video, so with a fond farewell, this is Shadowquill, Messenger of the Moon, signing off.
am flying, soaring high. Nobody can bring me down.